Hello, hello.
Hello,
We're live.
hello. We're live. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
It's
So, it's quite late. Oh, Amy's here. Hi, Amy.
Scarlett Bernadoodle.
Oh,
Nice.
so many people. So, what shall we talk
Surprisingly.
about?
Yeah, I
I
thought everyone
know.
was gonna be sleeping and we're like gonna be the only ones here and we're
Apparently not.
live, but apparently not.
That's so funny. So, oh, Amy says hi. Amy's in LA.
Nice. So it's 10:06. Why not?
We've never met, but she's bugging me to come out, and maybe I will. So, what would you like to talk about?
House of the Dragon. I'm joking. It's not gonna. I have a lot to say about it, but since you're not watching it, we'll skip the subject. Um, yeah, I know we've been sometimes we kind of focus on the bad stuff in dog training on social media. So let's talk about the good stuff a little bit, and then we'll get to the bad.
Okay, I was
So
like, that doesn't sound like fun.
how do you feel like social media affected dog training?
So
Uh,
we're going to go positive first.
let's go positive first, for sure.
So I think for me, social media has been a great way to network with other trainers and see other people work and really like get a nice inside view of some trainers. And I think it's been a good way for the general public, especially people that might not have a ton of money or resources, or they might live in a place where there aren't any qualified dog trainers. I think social media has been a place where people can get great advice sometimes or learn some really good things about dogs and dog behavior and picking a dog and all of that. So I think that that's been positive. How about you?
Sure. I think there's, especially for people who follow trainers like yourself who are amazing, they can learn a lot and benefit a lot, get a lot of information, good information, but also it's kind of tough to distinguish between what's good and bad these days because there's so many. And not just because someone has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of followers means that they're good dog trainers or capable of training dogs. So there's like kind of a fine line over there that um, we
Yeah.
should we should be able to distinguish. Yeah,
I think, yeah, for the general public, though, it's impossible for them to distinguish
for sure.
what's good and bad because, there's very few big accounts that are actually giving good advice. And most of the accounts that have over 100,000 followers seem to be accounts where the trainers are like incompetent, if not abusive, you know?
Right, right. And I think the other thing is like the bad ones aren't obviously bad to most people because they use treats too. So it's like they take a little from the bad, little from the good, and they mix it together and then go figure, like distinguish if they're good or bad or like figure it out on your own. So that's a tough
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it does make it harder because they are trying to like hide under the guise of being balanced, and they do act like they are because they use rewards. They wear a bait bag,
Right,
fanny pack, treat pouch, whatever. They on
right,
occasion toss out a treat for
right,
the camera,
right.
and yeah, balanced. A strange idea of balance training now has been purported because of, I think, social media too.
Totally, totally. And a lot of it is not balance training. I'm very familiar with balance training and I know how it works, and I'm sure you are too. But what we're seeing is not balance training. It's more like compulsion training, and it's pretty bad. Um, what hurts me most is that the people who are going to see those kind of things and then like do it on their own, especially with e-collars. When I see an e-collar, I'll always cringe because it's such a dangerous tool. Like if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not really familiar with the e-collar, the way it works, and with the way dogs learn, with classical conditioning, with operant conditioning, with like having good timing and all those prerequisites to using an e-collar, you can do a lot of harm. And it's a tool that carries a lot of risk. We've been talking about it. Like I almost feel like, of course, that's not probably not going to happen, but like e-collars should be kind of, I don't know, maybe licensed in a way where like you have to take a test and pass the test in order to be able to use one, at least, you know, if you're capable or qualified. But that's not the way it's going. And a lot of people think that e-collar is going to fix my recall issues without even teaching the dog a recall almost, or like even teaching the dog what the e-collar means. And it's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And yeah, so we're hopefully trying little by little to kind of bust the myths
Yeah.
and the
So
misconceptions.
I think somebody like farther back, well, somebody made a comment that it's 10 p.m. Eastern time, 10 p.m. Pacific time. Gia never sleeps. Accurate. But there was another comment asking how you tell. Like, how do you tell if a trainer is good or bad on social media?
Good question. I believe any trainer that uses compulsion to teach, and that's their first route, and like they require certain tools to teach a dog right off the bat. Um, and of course, you can tell how like the dogs are stressed, their stress signs, or where they're dealing with the dogs, and they're not using rewards, obviously, and using a lot of corrections for little things and the big things. And it's also an issue. Like people say, oh, okay, corrections worked for my dog. Okay, but what if you don't have a leash in your hand? What if your dog is off leash? You know, like the dog becomes so reliant on those corrections that almost a dog can't work independently from you, or even like be off leash or have freedom. Like if you're gonna yank on your dog for every little thing, and that's gonna become their signal, you know, to like to act in the world and behave. So it's yeah. How do you tell? You
Yeah.
think you might be able to add more?
I mean, I think it's easy to look at the dogs and see if, well, for me, because I am well versed in like body language, I think if I'm looking at animals and they're constantly stressed during the training process, that's a giant red flag. And you'll see in a lot of my videos, some of the dogs I'm working with are going to be like really stressed. And that's often because they have a mental illness that we're trying to work on, or I'm working with animals like in an animal shelter and it's a high stress environment. But it's my behaviors and my actions are not what is causing the stress to the pet.
Right.
And I'm looking for, like a decrease in that stress. So over time, I want to see that the pet is feeling better. It's when you see video after video of these dogs that look like panting, quivering, nutso messes. That's when I think that's like the biggest red flag. And that's what you'll see in a lot of like the major accounts on Instagram is, you know, when we look at certain big accounts, you'll see the dogs are in the videos are always panting and panting hard. It'd be like if you were teaching a class and everybody in the class was like hyperventilating. It's like not normal. It's a sign of severe anxiety. So I would look and look at that. And then I would also see like, what are they doing? Like, are they constantly punishing the dogs? Are they constantly scaring the dogs? Are the dogs reacting negatively to them? And then I also like to look at what their personal dogs look like. So when I see a trainer, like an influencer trainer or any trainer, and their dog is still needing to hike in an e-collar, and their dog is 5 years old, like that's a problem. It's a problem if your dog always has to be under the threat of punishment. And if you have a dog that you have loose that you cannot achieve recall on unless you constantly threaten them, like that's ugly and that's really common. Or you'll see trainers that they have to have a ball like or a toy on them to get their dog to work. They have to have food on them. They've never put a title on a dog. Like, there's a lot of red flags
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is for sure. It's I'm much less. I'd much rather someone a trainer that has food with them all the time over the one that has to like punish his dog all the time. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's I mean, it's not difficult. It's not difficult if you want to use corrections and you want to punish a dog, it's not difficult to get a dog to walk next to you on an e-collar. The minute he goes past you, they just blast him on the e-collar, and the dog learns that, hey, like I don't want to go there because I got shocked last time and it wasn't pleasant. So I think I'll stay behind you or like next to you. So it's nothing fancy about it. It's yeah. I sent you a video today of one trainer that was using the e-collar on a dog,
You
and
did.
every time he would go like the dog goes past her leg when she's walking, she would stim the dog, and it was like on social media, like in front of people, and average dog owners are watching this, and they can buy an e-collar online and put it on their dog and do the same thing tomorrow, and it is so. What do you think? What were your thoughts on that?
And that was a pretty large account, right?
Yeah, it
Like
was.
decent.
Yeah, decent. Yeah,
So, I mean, the thing that's scary about her, that trainer in particular, is that she is well spoken and it would be convincing if you're a regular person just watching her and watching this dog hug her leg. And she's not the only person doing it. It's like extremely common on social media, this heel under threat of punishment where the dog is like just glued to the side and kind of like a little shadow. You know, it's not a happy head up, excited heel. It's a weird
right,
heel.
right.
Um, and I think it is scary that something dangerous like that, yeah, is being shown on social media and treated as if it's fine and it's an actual training method and it's normal. What do you
Yeah,
think?
for sure. I mean, I think it's because e-collars carry a huge risk of superstitious associations. So it's really dangerous. Like, especially if the dog is not fluent with the behavior, not fluent with the e-collar, like 1,000%, and the dog is right next to you, and she was shocking the dog without, the dog was just confused. Like, I bet my life on it. The dog didn't know what he was being shocked for.
Well, we
And
didn't know. We were confused as well.
yeah, she said like, "Hey, I wanted this means look at me," but that's not the way you pair the stem with the look at me. Like it's a really wrong way to do it, doing it. And there's the yeah, very high risk. And if maybe like that dog was okay, maybe afterwards, who knows, maybe not. Not every dog is gonna be okay. It might mess up a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And, you know, that dog did not look okay. He was like, I mean, to be fair, like sometimes when I give my dog a cue, he'll lick his lips, whatever. I don't think I'm stressing him out, and that can happen. So we can't read that much into it. But the dog was like consistently licking its lips every time she stimmed him. I don't know what level she was using the collar on. That's a
right,
mystery. We don't know how much prior
right,
training the dog has had.
right,
The dog certainly didn't look like joyful or happy to
right,
be participating with her.
right. Someone asked a question, is there a difference between shock versus citronella vibration? Some people think, I'm not sure why, that vibration is nicer to the dog than low level stems. I don't think so. I felt both on my end, like on the e-collar technologies mini educator, and the vibration wasn't more pleasant than the level that I felt the stem on. Like let's say for example, I felt the stem on level 8 or 9, and I then put the vibration. The vibration was more startling, I'd say, even to dogs. Like a lot of dogs find it even more aversive than the low levels. Of course, it's dog dependent. Some dogs even find the real levels of e-collars find it really aversive and they get freaked out by it. So citronella collars, I think they are aversive too. So Well, how do you feel about ceramic collars in general?
You know, I think they can be very effective for certain problems. Um, so for example, if you have a dog who is like constantly eating stuff off the ground to the extent that they're either making themselves sick or they are resource guarding stuff and then going at the owner, or they are um, like just compulsively gobbling
Right,
everything and freaking their owner out, you
right,
know, like
right.
a bad like a cigarette eater basically.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
some of those, so with those dogs we could like an owner could try to reward them for keeping their head up and reward them for walking in heel. They could keep their head up with a head halter, which the dog might find extremely aversive. There are dogs that live in muzzles, or you could hypothetically pair the citronella collar with the action of trying to eat a cigarette, and the dog thinks that the cigarette or the ground is spraying them, and it can create a pretty instant aversion to them eating that item. And it's the same with a dog like chasing a cat. It is possible that if you sprayed them at the moment that they got to the
yeah,
cat, they would associate it with the cat spraying them like a skunk and they might stop. However, it is very aversive. And some would say it's more aversive than stim, possibly because it can work better than stim in some situations. And when we look at how aversive something is, we're looking at how efficiently does it stop a behavior, you know, from a
yeah,
training
yeah, yeah,
perspective. So
yeah.
it might be more aversive than pain. And you could really freak a dog out with one.
Like it's
And
almost like rattlesnake avoidance, where like they bring a rattlesnake that has like poison taken out, and then they bring the dog in an e-collar, and then the minute the dog, I don't know, like gets near the rattlesnake or shows interest in the rattlesnake, they shock the dog, and then the dog associates the shock with the rattlesnake, and then that's how they start avoiding
yeah.
rattlesnakes. So yeah, there are some applications to those tools, but
Oh, you're asking that because Scarlett asked it. Oh, are
uh,
you saying that randomly
the what?
about the rattlesnake thing?
Yeah, I'm saying it randomly.
Oh, because Scarlett said in the questions, thoughts on e-collar for rattlesnake training.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that's
what
yeah,
what a coincidence.
yeah.
So,
I didn't even read the question, so yeah. I mean, if it's gonna save a dog's life, and that's the only way to do it, and there are rattlesnakes, I mean, what do you do in that case? I mean, it's
I mean, I lived in LA and I just kept my dogs on a leash when during rattlesnake season, and that was
yeah,
that, you know?
yeah, but like Arizona is a big deal, rattlesnakes, like it's
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, like the rattlesnakes in backyards, they're everywhere. So it's a big deal. Like yeah, your dog will die for sure if you don't have something in place. Either you're gonna lock your dog inside or
So
you're gonna do
they,
something.
Karen Pryor Academy, which Stella's um, mom is going to be, Scarlett's mom is going to be taking. She's going to be doing the Karen Pryor Academy, like full Monty. They just started a rattlesnake avoidance live class, where basically like you go to class and then you train in video, and then the following week or month you go to
Oh,
another class.
interesting.
And so they're doing like there are a few people doing positive rattlesnake avoidance, and they're doing it successfully. But I think also we have to be mindful of that that's few and far between, and not everybody has the ability to train to that level or access to that kind of program.
Yeah.
So you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah. Sure. It's and also one of the big things that I've been noticing is that like this mentality of using strong aversives to fix behaviors that have a really strong genetic propensity. It's just like it's not gonna work. it's more like a form of suppression. The dog might look okay for a little bit. It's like putting a band-aid on something that needs, I don't know, 50 stitches, and then it's gonna leak in other places. The problem is gonna come back stronger, all of that. So, and there's been this idea where like reactivity, correct the dog, like resource guarding, correct the dog, you know, like dog growls for resource guarding, correct the growl. And that's like a whole other level of danger. What do you think of the correcting the growl for resource guarding? Like why is it something that we need to like stay away from?
I mean, because if you correct a dog for warning you, the idea is that they will not warn you and they'll just attack you and light you up.
Right. Right. It's almost like I thought about it the other day. I was like, if I bypass the smoke alarms in the house and just let the sprinklers get on when there's a little smoke in the house, like, is that something that we want? Like, no, we want like the smoke alarm to beep, and then I go ahead and look in the house, everything is good. I just push the hush button. But if I bypass that and then sprinklers are gonna flood the house, and kind of similar idea. I thought like, okay, a dog growls, he's telling you that, hey, I'm uncomfortable here. Like it's the situation is, and it's something that's they can't control. It's an emotional state. Like resource guarding is very genetic, also plus like of course behavior and other things that owners do and people do can affect that. But it's when it's really genetic and it's really strong, like correcting a growl is not going to do anything. The dog is still going to guard, and the dog, like you said, is going to just go on and grass. It's and a lot of I've been seeing a lot of videos like trainers where like they mess with the dog's food, they put their hand in the food, they take the food away, they pet the dog while it's eating, while it's chewing on bones, and I almost like I get agitated watching that. Like this is literally like agitation. Like you're like provoking the dog to respond, to like aggress, and it's the opposite of what we need to do. Which like to make the dog feel comfortable and safe in a way that he doesn't need to feel like he needs to aggress. Like I'm like if a dog, especially the dogs that show some signs of stress around resources and food, like one of the ways that we showed in the video also, like we come up to them, we toss a piece of food, and I even might like hang out for a little bit, like I'm not even look at the dog, and the dog just continues eating, he finishes his food, and nothing happens. We just both walk away, and next time, you know, he feels a little better about me approaching him, and same thing. Like it's there's no need for us to like keep messing with the dog's food and resources, which is might even create a problem with a dog that would never have one. It's like
And
it's yeah,
I mean the messing the stuff that like is on social media where people are messing with the dog's food or correcting a dog for growling, like we're past that by 10 years. Like really no good
right,
trainers do that
right,
anymore.
right,
And so social media is like this crazy place where it's like
right.
10, 20 years behind what any competent trainer already knows. And that,
True,
yeah.
true, true. Like those methods were like I don't know, like maybe in the 90s, like they were very common, and like I don't know why like people still use those. And you know, like in my city, like that trainer that was doing like a group class, like a city endorsed group class, and she was very compulsive. And she was like, no treats, just choke collars on every single dog, and you know, and just yank and crank, escape and avoidance training, and people don't know, like, and it's so painful. Like I went, you remember, like when I went and watched it for a little bit, like I was traumatized. I literally couldn't sleep for like probably like 3 nights in a row. I was like I wake up at night thinking about it. Like, what is this? Like, why are we still doing this? Like, it's 2022. Like, we've gone such a long way in science and psychology and behavior and like why? It just it baffles me. Like, it's so weird.
So, yeah, I think I think that the really incompetent trainers are out there and they have always been out there. They just seem to be able to have a good voice on social media. And part of that might be that it's like young morons, you know, that are on social media and they happen to find a voice and gain a following here. And it's just all about, I think, being able to speak convincingly
Right.
and make a video and edit it, and it fools people. So
Right.
we could talk about the flip side if you want really quick. What about there's some weird stuff with positive training too.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. That's very weird stuff. Um,
So what's the weirdest?
uh, the weirdest I feel like is when someone, especially like for someone like us as dog trainers, when someone tries to speak to us in a condescending way, like, hey, I know better than you. I've read a few research articles better than you, and
Oh
like
yeah.
stuff like that. Like it just drives me nuts. Like I respect what you do, just leave me alone, please, kind of thing. Like that's, and I'm never gonna get into arguments with those people anymore. That's it.
We we had a good one on one of our videos. I don't know if you saw the comment, and she was saying something about how what we were doing was negative reinforcement.
Yeah, I did see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And then like a board certified behavior analyst that works with autistic children and has a master's in behavior theory, she chimed in and was like, no, you're wrong, and this is why, and it's acting upon positive reinforcement. And this person went back at her to tell her that she's wrong. So this person with zero credential, it basically, social media gives like a platform for people, whoever, to talk about things that they have no knowledge of, you know, and
Yeah,
feel emboldened to do it, you know.
for sure, for sure. And two topics I feel like maybe we should talk about a little bit. How do you feel about board and trains?
Board and trains.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a few friends that do them and I would probably trust them with my dogs. But overall, I think the concept is odd.
sure.
It's like, I think, I think most of the people that send their dog to board and trains, the dog has a problem. And the
Or they
problem is
don't have,
not,
or they don't have time to train the dog, and they expect a dog that's gonna come back and be like, you have like
I,
a remote controller with a dog that you can push buttons and control it. You know, that's
I mean, honestly, here it seems like most of the people, their dog is not an easy dog, and that's why they
mm,
want to do it. It's not
okay,
it's not just like puppies that people want to train.
okay,
It's
okay.
when we get calls for board and train, it's like, my dog is a problem and a nightmare. Can you take him and fix it?
Yeah,
It's basically quick fix.
got it.
It's quick fix people.
Got it. I'm I think it's a great idea, but the thing that I don't like is short-term board and trains. Like if someone is promising you to teach your dog all these behaviors in 2, 3 weeks, I mean I would challenge those people. Like what kind of methods are you using? Because some dogs take a week to get just accustomed to the environment and eat maybe in the new environment that they're in at the board and trains. And if you have, let's say you have a board and trains for 3 weeks or 2 weeks and you already promised the client all these behaviors and the dog is not learning at that pace, what do? You already know what they're gonna do. They're gonna lean on pressure work because pressure work,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it sticks and it's faster and it and the owner's eyes, it shows that there are results there. Um, so yeah, it's like I'm with board and trains, but to a certain extent, with like certain limitations, where like maybe if I was to do a board and train, I wouldn't promise all these things to people, but I don't know how many people want that. Like it really is dog dependent. It's like you putting your child in a class and asking the teacher like how long will it take my child to know calculus, for example. Like like it's very dog dependent, very child dependent. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. And when you have a board and train, and it like they specify that your dog will be this way at the end of it, and every dog will be this way, how is it possible that every dog could be
Right,
the same when they're all
right,
different?
right.
And I think like we're like for my business, we're not opposed to the idea of board and train. We occasionally will do it, and may like venture into that more as things progress. But I like the idea more of taking in animals and like socializing them and getting them around other dogs, taking them out in public, getting them used to a variety of people. So when we did do board and trains at the house, um, the dogs would meet a ton of dogs. They would like, we would take them hiking. We would like, I mean, I have a huge family. So the dogs automatically would be meeting like 20 people. They would be included, you know, we would take them on car rides. So we're
Yeah,
basically doing the work of like socialization for a dog or puppy
yeah,
and getting to know the dog and seeing where the trouble spots are so we can communicate it to the owner.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
So,
sure, go ahead.
what were you going to say?
No, no, go ahead.
Okay. So, what are some of the other funny things which are on social media that are like positive reinforcement? Um, you know, the positive reinforcement camp that are kind of questionable ideas. So I think there's a big push for your dog shouldn't have to work for their meals. Meals shouldn't be always contingent upon doing something, and you should feed your dog from a bowl. And it's wrong if you don't give at least one meal a day from a bowl. Have you seen this?
Mm,
You haven't seen it?
I
Dang.
haven't seen it.
I'll have to send you some.
Yeah,
What do you think about that, though? The idea that if your dog has to work for every meal, even if it's doing something simple, that it's harmful to them.
harmful to have a dog work for its meal. How are you going to train the dog? Like that's if the dog doesn't want what you have, which is either food or toy, uh, how are you going to train the dog? I'm curious.
Well, you can train them with some food, but you should always give them some food for free so they don't have to work for it.
Why though? Like what is it based on? Like like that makes me question the whole thing. Like it's
It's pretty weird.
okay.
That's
Maybe
one
it's
of my
based on humans, sure, but it's that's one of your what? Your friends? It's came up with the
is
idea.
it one of my friends came up with the
Yeah,
idea?
yeah.
Um, I don't. It is possible.
Okay.
So, what are some others that you can think of with positive trainers? The weird stuff.
Like leash pressure is a devil.
Oh yeah, leash pressure is the devil.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
yeah.
How
It's
could I
not
forget?
it's not the devil. Like that's they're animals, and we must have them under control. And sure, you can teach your dog to be good on the leash 99% of the time. Like it almost feels like you don't even need the leash. But what if that 1% happens on that day? You know, like it's that's why we prepare dogs to know what leash pressure means and to understand what pressure means and what stress means, because there are a lot of what ifs in life. Like life is not positive only, it's not all butterflies and rainbows. So it's like there's gonna be stuff out there in the world that might be unpleasant. And I don't know, you might want to chase that kid on a scooter. I don't know, like something. It's and I must be able to stop you. Uh, so yeah, it's just like training a dog, conditioning a dog to a muzzle. I mean, you might need not need the muzzle for 99.9% of the time, but that 0.1% they're gonna need it. That conditioning might make all the difference.
And I think, yeah, the idea that you have to stop your dog, like it's pretty basic. And I find it odd that people are against like using a 6 foot leash or using the leash to stop the dog from moving forward, you know? And how, and, you know, the video we posted where people freaked out about it, it was funny because they kept saying, you need to do error-free learning. Have you seen errorless learning? Like, do you think I just got out of prison and I haven't heard of errorless learning that you people post about all the time? And what they failed to understand was like when we were doing the leash pressure exercise, it was on 100% reinforcement rate. And we were using the leash as a prompt, which is a big part of errorless learning. So I think part of the problem too is a lot of people that do dog training and positive reinforcement based dog training specifically, or, you know, every type of dog training, they want to be scientific and they want to use the science, but they have no scientific background and no academic background in learning theory. So they kind of take an idea and run with it without truly understanding it.
Right, right. And one of the big things I've also been seeing is directional changes on dogs, like walking on leash. Like you let your dog walk out of you, and then all of a sudden you turn 180 degrees and just go the other direction. Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's not a positive training thing, is
I
it?
know it's not a positive training. It's like
Okay.
different. Yeah, I know I'm like switching subjects right now, like
No, it's fine. It's fine.
unannounced. Yeah, but it's
I
just like
mean,
that. The thought
that's
came
like
to me, and I
that's
figured
like one of
let's.
that's like one of the biggest things we see in balance training, or not balance training, fake balance training. I mean, they call themselves balance
They
trainers,
call it a
so
balance.
we'll
Yeah,
call them balanced.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like the method of teaching leash walking and fixing aggression, right? Is walk. Oh, he sees something, turn, let him hit the end of the
right,
leash. I
right.
didn't correct him. He corrected himself.
Encouraging himself, right, right,
Can you imagine walking with somebody and they're like, and you're holding their hand and then boom, they just take off in the other direction?
right,
It's like, it'd be so terrible.
right, right. And that's in the Keeler method, by the way, book.
Oh,
That's
did you read it?
one of it. I didn't read it. It was too
Oh,
painful. I just like skimmed through some stuff. I just like
so,
it's funny, like when you look at the stuff like inside that book, like it's and you see how many of those things some trainers are still using up to this day, and they feel like they're doing something new or like reinventing the wheel, but they're like using like really old, outdated techniques. Like I think it was the book was published in like 1963 or something like that. That's like how many years ago? 60? Yeah, 60
um,
years ago.
it's about
60
as
years ago.
old. That's as
Yeah.
old as my dishwasher.
Yeah. Oh my God. That dishwasher. Yeah. What else? What's on your
Oh,
mind?
I mean, there's, oh, so another incompetent thing that we've seen is like sit, good sit, good sit, good down, touch,
Right.
good touch, good
Right.
touch. Like,
Right. Like there's no point. Like you only undermine your command or cue, by like repeating it without any consequence, I guess. So it's why do that?
yeah,
There's no point.
it's,
Yeah.
it like, so one thing I have my clients do, would you like to do it? Raise your hand. Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. Good, raise your hand. Like you
Yeah.
feel like you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And so when you
Right.
like repeat a cue and you repeat a cue with a qualifying like
True.
word, like good or
100%.
nice or
Yeah.
whatever, you're confusing the hell out of the animal because they're
Right.
already doing the action. They don't, their brain sees a cue as, their brain sees a word that we're telling them as a cue. And so
Right.
it's supposed to prompt action. So if they're already doing the action and you chatter your words, you're just diluting your system like badly. And this is basic training stuff. And it's scary that people on social media don't even have that basic knowledge and
Right.
continue to do good sit, blah, blah, blah.
Someone, please explain. My trainer taught me to say good or yes after they do it. Yeah, those so basically, good or yes, typically we use them as reward markers. So the way we condition the reward markers is like we say yes, and then we give a piece of food. Yes, and then we give a piece of food. So what we're doing is we're forming that association between the yes and the piece of food. And every time you say yes and you give a piece of food, you're kind of putting a charge in your battery. And every time you say yes without giving a piece of food, you're depleting the charge in your battery. Um, so that's why in the beginning, especially, we want to make sure that we say yes, we reward 100% of the time. Yes, reward, yes, reward, yes, reward. Then what yes means is a reward marker. It means a reward. And good is the same thing. A lot of people use good differently. I'm not sure. We were talking about this earlier, Gia. So the way
We do
I
things
use,
differently.
yeah, true, which is fine. And the way I use good is like to tell the dog that keep doing what you're doing and the reward is coming. And simple as that. So yeah, we do use reward markers, good and yes, but without repeating the cue again. Like I ask my dog to sit, my dog sits, I say yes, and I reward. But I don't need to say good sit or it's or good down or good place.
That would be bad.
Yeah, that'll be bad. I agree.
So, any other funny, bad things that people do on social media?
Um,
One last thing.
no, I think the guy who put his head in the dog's food bowl was pretty funny.
It was pretty
Yeah,
funny. Pretty
yeah,
bad. Hope.
I'm tough and strong, and I train big dogs, and I'm the
And
tough guy. And I was like,
I
you
wear my
were.
leash like a gun holster. I'm MacGyver. It's ridiculous.
Jeez. I totally forgot what the other topic that I wanted to talk about other than boarding trains, and it was a big topic. Oh, genetics. Gene-
Genetics.
Genetics in dogs, and how important do you think it is to to get the dog that's appropriate for your lifestyle, for your family, for your living situation, for all of that? Because I think, especially you as a behaviorist, you see a lot of people who get these dogs that have very strong genetic propensities. Like the dog was bred for years, decades, a century to have a certain behavior, and then we bring those dogs home and we expect them not to do any of that. So, how important it is to choose the right
I
dog
mean,
for you.
it's essential. And
Yeah,
if you don't, there's going to be problems.
right.
So, yeah, I would say like most of the problems we see could have been prevented if people just picked the right pet for them. Um, I get a lot of clients and I love them dearly, but they'll get like a border collie or an Australian shepherd, and they really should not have a herding dog. There's no reason for them to have a herding dog. They do not do work with their dogs. They work a full-time job. They only have one dog, so they don't have dogs to interact with each other. Or they have no other pets, so the dog is like lonely all day. So I do see, especially like with people in our age group, people getting like these herding dogs and it just going really badly. Um, and then I see a lot of people also doing the adopt, don't shop thing where they think it's all how you raise them. They can adopt whatever puppy is cute. There's no guidance from the animal shelter, and they get a dog who ends up having behavioral issues because genetically the dog is not well, or
Yeah,
they get a dog that is not suited to their lifestyle. They might be 80
yeah,
years old and getting like a very hyperactive, high energy hound mix
yeah,
type dog when they really should have went and bought a Shih Tzu.
for
Um,
sure. And like it's like I think about it, for example, like German Shepherds. I mean, they've been bred to when they feel uncomfortable to kind of aggress. That's part of like the breed suitability test that they undergo, which was IPO, Schützen, IGPs from Germany. Like dogs have must be titled to be bred. And so what good would a German Shepherd be if like he was competing in that sport, and once he feels some pressure, he just acts submissive. Like they're not going to breed that dog. So they selectively choose the dogs that aggress under pressure and don't act submissive and all that. But on the other end of the spectrum, like we talk about golden retrievers, for example, like golden retrievers, typically good golden retrievers are chosen to be good dogs, and when they feel a certain amount of pressure to like act submissive, and and that's it. So it's genetics play a big role in behavior. And
Yeah.
just like Belgian Malinois, like people watch these movies and they see the Belgian Malinois, they're awesome dogs, but they're not for every dog owner. Like if you don't know what you're doing and your lifestyle doesn't fit the lifestyle that a Belgian Malinois needs, like you have no business getting one. And shelters are full of German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois because they're two like the protection heritage breeds that have very strong genetics towards like aggressive behavior and all that. Of course, not all of them, not every single one of them. I'm not saying that's something necessarily bad. Maybe it's bad for the average family, but it's not bad for the dog trainer or dog owner who wants to compete with a dog and do sports with a dog. So that's it.
Or if you're a drug dealer, oh, doodles. People getting doodles
Doodles.
have no idea what poodles need. I mean, that was Scarlet, I think, as well. Yep. And
Yep.
the problem with doodles, too, is that the majority of people making them are unethical. They don't care what they're putting out. They don't call to see if what they've created is actually good with children or non-aggressive. And like that could be for any breed, like any type of dog. Like any breed can have come from a shitty breeder. And then you're going to be looking at a problem, because when you're breeding a dog to make money and not breeding a dog because you're showing your dogs and you like the breed, you're getting into territory where they're just creating something that looks a certain way without concern for the mental health of the pet, or
Yep.
if the pet is like a emotionally like sound family
Right.
dog.
Right. Right. Like if you're a breeder and you have, I don't know, you're breeding doodles and you have parents that have some strong resource guarding issues, like why would you breed those dogs? You know what I mean? Like it's just very strange. Like you're saying, it comes down to like business and money and all that. But I mean yeah, it's
Not
tough.
good.
It's not good. For sure. I've met some amazing doodles, and I have a doodle myself, as you know.
You do?
Oh no, I don't.
Oh my God, I've been lied to. I thought you had border collies this whole time.
All right.
So, well, it's probably time to wind down for bed for Gia.
For sure.
So this has been fun, and I hope everybody on here learned a little bit. And we'll have to do a random impromptu Instagram live again sometime.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.